Welcome to Learning Life Skills Together. This is our weekly community Zoom meeting where our guests help us to go deeper into the 4 life skills and open up a huge array of chances to practice them. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Learning Life Skills Together Zoom meeting. This is Zoom meeting number 26 with David Payne and Carey Bresler. And right now, as we're rolling out the program, what we're thinking about is the module on regulating our emotions, working with our emotions. And what I'm particularly interested in tonight is the power of what's called name it to tame it. So when we use our attention skill and notice how we're feeling, and then we take the time to name that feeling, it helps us to sort of get outside the feeling just a little bit and be able to work with it, and to see that it's not everything that I am. I'm not sad. Sadness is here with me, right? So that's the concept, is that when we can name it, we can work with it. And so you can see that this has a lot to do with having words for emotions, right? Building up the vocabulary that our kids have to express how they're feeling. They have to go in and check, and then check against the words that they know. So the more words they have, the more finely tuned their emotions can be, and the better you can talk about emotion with them. So, what better place to investigate for finding words than a library? And so David and Carey are coming to us from their respective libraries in Avon Grove and Oxford. So Chester County Library System, wonderful thing, marvelous books available for kids of all ages. And so that includes parents and carers, right? So we want to take a look at the kinds of things that are available and the ways that we might use them. So I'm going to ask Carey to read us a story.
Yeah, so the story I chose speaks a lot to putting names to your emotions. It's My Many Colored Days by Dr. Seuss. And it kind of gives you a new kind of way of identifying your feelings and relating them to a color, which is something that we all, colors invoke certain emotions in us. And I think this is a great book that illustrates that, um, how you can kind of have a blue day or a red day and what that means. So it does build a vocabulary where you can explain through example. So I thought it was a great one to pick. It's by the great Dr. Seuss, although it doesn't have as difficult rhymes as his usually do. So it's a really great one to read aloud. And the illustrations are also quite beautiful. So let me get myself set up here. Are you able to see the book when I hold it up, or is it blurred?
It's blurred.
Okay, hold on.
Yeah.
I can fix that. Is that better?
That's better.
That's
We can
better.
see red and green.
Okay. So, days are yellow. Some are blue. On different days, I'm different too. You'd be surprised how many ways I change on different colored days. On bright red days, how good it feels to be a horse and kick my heels. On other days, I'm other things. On bright blue days, I flatten my wings. Some days, of course, feel sort of brown. Then I feel slow and low, low down. Then comes a yellow day. I am a busy, busy bee. Gray day. Everything is gray. I watch, but nothing moves today. All of a sudden, I'm a circus seal. On my orange days, that's how I feel. Green days, deep, deep in the sea. Cool and quiet fish, that's me. On purple days, I'm sad. I groan. I drag my tail. I walk alone. But when my days are happy pink, it's great to jump and just not think. Then comes my black days, mad and loud. I howl, I growl at every cloud. It's a mixed up day. And wham, I don't know who or what I am. All turns out all right, you see. And I go back to being me. And that's the end.
Hmm, wonderful. So since we're not live, um, I can't ask what the audience is thinking and how that went for them, but I can talk about how it was for me. And David, maybe as someone else who was listening, you can chime in as well. I mean, I really like this idea of the changeability of our emotions. You know, that really came through for me. The ideas of being those different animals was kind of cool too. You know, the difference between being a bear and being a flamingo, or a bee and a wolf. I mean, so really lots of different ways of symbolically expressing how we feel. I feel today like a bee. Yeah, I've got so many things to do. And that's true. I'm just reflecting on my own experience. So yeah, so I really like that idea. So it's a there are two different vocabularies running in there of the animal and the color. David, how was it for you?
What I think it was really, really positive. I mean, no children's book list will be complete without a Dr. Seuss story. And here we
Yeah.
see him in a slightly different vein, describing the mood of our days in true Dr. Seuss fashion with color. And it's silly, it's simple, it's imaginative, and it's wonderful because how evocative color is to describe our moods and our emotions. And I know that when he wrote the book back in the mid 70s, he deliberately searched for an artist who could give him the kind of artwork that he
Hmm.
needed to bring
Wow.
it out.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Thanks for that. Thanks for that background on that. So, this idea of hmm, having a whole lot of ways of talking is really what we're after. And so this was not exactly a story, it was kind of a story of the child's whole way of having emotions, from one to another. And that's a great way of working with these things for the younger set, for the little ones. And one of the things that I like about it is you wouldn't even have to read Dr. Seuss's rhymes there to be able to talk with the kiddo about that. You could see, oh, These are ways that we feel. Do you ever feel yellow? And you could talk about what that, yeah. I mean, you could really have a lot of fun just picking it up, going through 3 or 4 pages and putting it down and going on with whatever you had to do in the house and pick it up again later. So it's really like you're not committed to this big thing and okay, now let's talk at the end. It's like do two and then you've had a conversation. That's really cool. So so that's a really beautiful, direct way of experiencing this development of an emotional vocabulary. And so some of the other ways I'm thinking about is when we read a story and we can see that the character is having a particular emotion and that's a chance for us, again to work with the kids. So it's kind of the whole scale of kids if we sort of broke it up with, the littles and then, the kids who are really starting to get interested in stories and adventures and things like that, all the way up through, the teens and the really kind of deep and complex emotions that teens have. And then stories give us a chance to explore that. So I wanted to ask each one of you to sort of talk a little bit about your library, if you wanted to introduce yourself, your library, and then maybe say something about well, let's start with favorite books for the little ones that would help people do this, things that stand out for you. Does that sound like a plan?
Sure.
Okay. All right. Anybody can start.
Um,
Okay.
you could go first, David. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. So I'm David Payne. I am the library director at Avon Grove Library, which is in West Grove in southeast Chester County, about 10 miles or so north of Oxford. And um, I think what this podcast has allowed me to do is really think about what is central to our work, and that is, the power, as Don said, the power of the story to convey, to enhance, to invite emotions, and how reading allows us to, and younger children particularly, to insert themselves into the story, into a story, and project their own feelings upon it. Um, I think also, as one of the most basic things, and Carey will agree with me, one of the basic things that we do week in, week out in our libraries is story time. And that as a structured framework is really, I think, one of the very powerful things about it is how, in terms of social and emotional skills, developing them. One of the things about story time is how, when books are read to a group, children can learn from others about
Yeah.
um, social and emotional skills, um, how to respond to stories.
Mhm.
Do you laugh? Do you cry? Uh,
Mm. Yeah.
so I think for children, it's a wonderful structure, obviously, because they can pick up what normal responses are to
Yeah.
situations. So I think therein is one of the great powerful things of story time.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Um, my this is obviously a subject of great depth, and one could spend hours talking about books and resources on it.
Hmm.
Me, Carey picked a great choice. I thought in Dr. Seuss. I mean, there are some other ones for younger readers, particularly that jump out at me. One is a very good book that we have in our collection here at Avon Grove, and Carey may have at Oxford. It's certainly available within the Chester County Library system. And that's it's a picture book by Dan Santat. And it's called After the Fall. It's about how Humpty Dumpty got back up again. And so we all know the story of Humpty Dumpty. But the author here talks about Humpty Dumpty coped after the fall when he's afraid of heights. He's afraid
Wow.
of fear, trauma, and in a very suitable way for a children's picture book, speaks to the grip of fear and trauma and the exhilaration of mastering it.
Mhm.
Mm,
So I think that's a very powerful book in that sense.
wow. Sounds
Um,
fantastic.
the another series that for younger readers, school age students too, very popular series written by and illustrated by Diane Alber. That's Alber. She's written a series called Inspire to Create a Better You. And she's published a series of very small books, very easy to go through. And they all begin with a little spot of anger, a little spot of anxiety, a little spot of sadness, a little spot of happiness. Those are all some of the books in her series,
Hmm.
nicely illustrated, very simply worded, but very evocative.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
so,
I really like that little
yeah,
spot,
yeah.
as opposed to I
Um,
am this. I
exactly,
have a
exactly.
little spot of this. Oh, wow.
So that's a very
Yes.
powerful series
Yeah.
that I would recommend. Um, for very, very young readers, Todd Parr, that's Parr, has written a very powerful board book called The Feelings Book, which in a
Mhm.
board book type of way, in and wonderful illustrations, and very precisely talks about feelings for younger readers. Ed Emberley, that's
Oh, yeah.
Emberly, of course, well-known author.
Yeah.
Amongst the many books he's written, Glad Monster, Sad Monster. Again, so to touch on the various emotions, a lovely book about feelings that way. Those are for younger readers. I don't know. I have a few for older ones. I don't know if you want me to talk about them now or later, but
So let's do Carrie's intro and younger books, and then we'll talk about the older kids. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm Carey. I work at the Oxford Library, and yes, story time is a great tool for socialization as well as literacy. So it's and it's fun. So um, I think the great thing about reading is that it builds empathy for readers of all ages. You can relate to people in the stories, or you're not. It's not about you when you're reading. It's about the characters and the story that you're immersed in. So it really gives you that view of like seeing. You may see yourself in the book, but it's not about you. So you are developing emotions and feelings and responses to somebody and what they're going through and what they're experiencing and what their hardships might be. So that's why I think reading is a great tool to help you tap into that. Some of my favorite books, I mean, David mentioned quite a few, but I like the Llama Llama series. That's a great one for the little ones because Llama has very relatable emotions. He misses his mom, he gets mad at his mom, he grows attachments to, his pajamas. And I think that we all see that, and he's I would guess Llama's probably around the age of 3 from his behavior, but that's a great series. Another one of my very favorite series of books for young readers is, and I have this one here because I thought about reading this one, but it's by Kobe Yamada. This one is what do you do with a problem, but there's also what do you do with an idea, and they're just amazing books with an idea. Like you could visually see what the idea starts out as and what it transforms into and manifests into. And
Mm.
um, and the same with the problem. So it's really working you through these experiences in a way that's both generic and specific. So
Yeah,
because yeah,
it
everybody has a
lets the
different
kids
problem.
see their mind. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I think those
I
are
love it.
some of my favorite for the younger grades.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, so those are the younger grades. So let's move up a little bit. Let's go up the ladder here.
I think with the middle grades, they can be a little bit more specific to the child, whatever wherever their interests lie. Like for instance, the Rick Riordan stories
Mm,
that they're based on mythology. He has a couple of different series, but the characters in them, the way that he writes his main characters, Percy Jackson, for example, that's a really relatable. Even though the the plot and the things that happen to Percy are fantastic, um, I think every child reading it would be able to relate to his responses to his challenges
mm.
and his family struggles. He has obviously when your parent is a god, you you have some interesting familiar struggles. But there are series that are for kids who are very interested in sports. There are for people who like to ride horses, I mean, but I think the great thing about them is that in all of them, especially in the middle grades, they're very character centered books. Um, and I think that helps by reading that and relating to that, that helps a child to grow.
Yeah, cool. So yeah, I love those Rick Riordan books. And yeah.
And who doesn't like a little fun? I mean, you
Yeah.
should find some recreation. That's really what draws you in is,
Well,
the
this is the thing is that we're accomplishing a lot of things for our children's development as we do this. Yes, there's this whole part of learning about our emotions and learning language around it, but just learning to read for enjoyment is such a big thing. I mean, the studies of people who read for enjoyment, their mental health is better.
sure.
We know that. Yeah. So very much dead center of what this program of learning life skills together is all about. Uh, David, you're the one who brought up the whole sort of thing that happens when we get together around a story. So, there's a sense in which reading a chapter book aloud, chapter by chapter, is an undertaking that people can do. And again, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and you can talk and then go do your thing. So I'm wondering what you've got in your shelves for us
Yeah.
on.
So I've chosen to talk a lot about the graphic novel
Mm.
because it's obviously a very distinct genre. Um, but I think to me it lends itself in a very particular way to um, the subject of emotions, social emotion, social and emotional learning. How does visual storytelling communicate differently than words?
Mm.
And I think the answer is when you're watching a character go through it, you're seeing the emotions as we alluded to, with the Dr. Seuss book at the beginning. You see the emotions, you see the character in perhaps a different way than is the case when you're just reading plain text. So I do think, for me, the graphic novel has a lot of power in this
Yeah.
um and one book that stands out for me is by the prolific children's graphic novelist Raina Telgemeier, who wrote amongst the many things that she's put together a book called Guts,
Mm.
which is a very engaging graphic novel about really what is her or was her own experience as a child, coping with bullying, coping with anxiety, and physical illness while at school. So
Mm.
this is a very absorbing book. Again, it's full of color. It's full of it depicts a wide range of emotions in a very, very clear way. And I think, again, the power of the graphic novel is it appeals to those people who perhaps don't want to, for whatever reason, go through a chapter book.
Mhm.
Right.
So I do think there's a lot here. So Guts by Raina Telgemeier is highly recommended. Um, there is also a very prolific, well, one of the very prolific young adult authors in recent years is John Green,
Mm.
um, who's written the uh, Fault in Our Stars. I think that's perhaps his best known work, but Turtles All the Way Down, Paper Towns, Looking for Alaska. And one thing about John Green is that he is very, very open about his emotions and and he really fills his young adult novels with that same sincere feeling
Mhm.
and
Mm.
conviction. And I think that's one reason why he is probably so popular with young readers today. And he does also, I believe he does a very, very popular podcast or YouTube presence. I think he really communicates very well and very, very powerfully um, about emotion, what it means to him. And he also is somebody who believes strongly in the power of community, and he uses that community again
Mm.
to
Yes.
imbue that emotion. So
Yeah.
anything by John Green, we have them in the libraries. Very, very highly recommended. Um, I think again, going back to the graphic novel and how in a illustrative sort of way, in a graphic way, it brings out emotion. One that stands out for me is The Dark Matter of Mona's Star, written by Laura Lee Gullidge, which is basically a young adult graphic novel about one teenager's battle to understand her own mental illness and find and seek her own creative genius. It's a story about learning to work through self-care and friendship, self-awareness, self-management. Very
Mm.
powerful
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
recommended. Um, Another popular book, The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas.
Mm.
Again, very popular in recent years amongst the young adult readership. Um, and uh, it's the story is about a 16-year-old who moves between two different worlds, the neighborhood in which she lives in and the more upscale suburban school she attends, and the uneasy balance between
Mm.
those two worlds
Yeah.
that's shattered when she witnesses a fatal shooting, and the dilemma inside her which follows that. So
Yeah.
that I think is a very powerful book. But so much we could have, I think both Carey and I could have talked about here, and
Mhm.
I think we just touched
Yeah.
on the service, on surface rather. But I hope that in my selection and Carey's too, we've done that.
Yeah, no, it sounds wonderful. And graphic novels are really so interesting because they're so different. There are so many um styles in which the expression comes through.
Mhm.
There's some that are really simple, black and white, and you get it. And then there are these really rich, layered things that you could spend a half an hour on one page just trying to figure out all the stuff that's going on. Hey, yeah, I love that. Thank you, Dave.
I remember using the one of the books by Raina Talamager, Sisters, with my own daughters. Both of them, I gave them both a copy of it because, well,
Hmm.
it had a lot to do with what they were having a little bit of interpersonal
Yes.
communication problems, and I remember encouraging them both to read that book because there was a lot in there that was recognizable to them.
Yeah, yeah. To see yourself or the other,
Yeah.
yeah, in a book is really, really useful. Cool. So, I mean, this has been a discussion so far of books, which is pretty obvious for, we're talking with library people, but there's so much more to the library, and there's so many more resources for doing these kinds of things that we're talking about that I thought maybe you could each talk about, what's up at your library, things that people can get um get their hands on to help the kids in this way and to help themselves as well. I don't want to leave adults out of this at all. So,
Well, summers is the best time to come into the library and start reading because we incentivize it during
ah,
the summer.
okay.
We have summer reading clubs for all ages, and you can earn prizes and rewards. We have a read a bead program, which is great. I mean, it's great to see the kids come in as they reach reading milestones. They get to select a bead, and sometimes they can upgrade use three of those beads to upgrade to a nicer bead,
Oh,
and their necklaces by the end of the summer are just spectacular. But yes, we have that for all ages. We have the teen read battle. We have a program for adults to read, and they can win prizes too. So
so how does the
uh,
battle work?
the teen read battle. So
Yeah,
um,
that's
at the beginning of the
intriguing.
summer, yeah, at the beginning of the summer, we have two teams. You take a questionnaire, and that puts you in one team or the other, and collectively you add to your team's total for reading.
Ah,
And the team who ends up with the highest total gets a party at the end of the summer, and a grand prize. The other team does get a prize as well, but
okay.
yeah. But
All right.
we kind of make it a little bit of competitive for our teams.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
like
but
the challenge of it.
everybody makes out because they've read the
Yeah,
books. Plus,
yeah.
yeah, cool. So what else is going on? David, what's going on
So, as
down the
Carey
road?
said, this is this is showtime for us. It's the timing of the podcast couldn't be better because we're heading into summer and all that brings, as Carey has said and as we discussed before. So I mean, here at Avon Grove, over and above our normal programming, we're doing about 20 programs all through the summer months, June, July, August, and I unfortunately forgot my list. So I can't
Well,
think where to
you
start,
you
but
could
it's all
give us
right.
some highlights and we'll link
Yeah.
everybody to your website.
But we have, one of the regular things that we do have that speaks to what we've been talking about today is our monthly uh, PAWS, PAWS, Read to the Dogs program.
Oh,
Um, so reading to a therapy dog, 15 minutes. Um,
mm,
and so that's a very, very well supported, popular program for children that's held on the first Saturday of the month.
mm. Now it sounds like
And
that's might be something you had to sign up for.
It is indeed, yeah. And you can sign up on our from our website or
Yeah,
by
yeah,
calling.
yeah.
Um, we have we talked about story time and how that conveys emotions, but another medium for doing that is the puppet show.
Ah,
And we have on I think Tuesday, June the 26th, I believe, we have Tucker's Tales puppet show coming here. They're doing a show on the Beatrix Potter, Peter
Hmm.
Rabbit tales.
yeah.
And so that's sure to be exciting. We have a uh, photography project that we're embarking on through the summer for students who are in or going into grades 6 to 9, where
Hmm.
they can we're going to be giving them disposable cameras, film cameras, and they're going to be asked to
Wow.
go up and really look at their communities in a new light through a camera.
Yeah. Oh,
And
yeah.
so that hopefully will be powerful.
That's wonderful.
Um, we've got, I think, cooking with books with youngsters, which is I think we're reading, and I may be wrong, but I think it's The Very Hungry Caterpillar and um
Cooking, yes, I get
yeah, I forget where the cooking comes in, but I know there's a link. So
it.
there's a lot going on, and again, it's
Yeah.
all on our website. But yeah, so, and I think, as we've said, the library, it's whether it's a summer, whether it's a winter, all year round, it's a neutral space. It's a place where people can find themselves, where cohorts form. And I
Yeah.
think that's where the power is. We have access to musical resources, we have access to audiovisual resources, movies and documentaries, and so on. Um, we have apart from the books on social and emotional health, we have art programs, both Carey and I, where you can develop art skills, and
Hmm.
and
Mhm.
that's a great medium. Um, Homework help, all these things are part of our
Yeah.
year-round endeavors. So I think Carey would agree that's really the power of the public library.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%.
Okay. So what else have you got going on? Anything special at your
So
for your particular libraries?
So this year is a big year for us at Avon Grove. We are 150 years old. The very first public library in West Grove opened in 1874 in the back of a grocery store.
Wow.
We've grown a bit since then, and I think we've 4 or 5 buildings on. We're now where we are in a very nice location in, excuse me, in the center of West Grove. So obviously 150 years, that's, an occasion not to be missed. And
Yeah.
we are going to have a community-wide celebration, commemoration in probably November, which we're looking forward to. We're also going to be having a photo exhibit and exhibit with various artifacts and historical bits and pieces, and many other things too. So for us, as any meaningful anniversary does, it's an opportunity to look back and I think look forward.
Hmm.
Um, and so it's a really great opportunity for us. And um, I know that Carrie's library is slightly older than us, so she's probably had some experience with this. But
Yes, not to one up you, but this year is our 240th birthday. But we're not celebrating too much about that. We're waiting for 250. So, but yes, we've been around for a while. The biggest thing on our calendar coming up is our fishing tournament, which is just a terrific day. It's on June 29th. It's at the beautiful Glenroy Preserve. We partner with them and they have 3 ponds on their property And this is the only time where those ponds are fished. So,
Wow.
you can fish in those ponds, and it's a largemouth bass tournament. We invite families to come out. The Lions Club provides a delicious hot dog lunch. We have money prizes. Stroud will be there, as well as the Brandywine Conservancy and a couple other local environmental agencies to just do informational tables. It's a
Mm,
really great day to come out with your family and fish, and we just really enjoy it. It starts at early, 7 in the morning, because anglers start early and goes till
hmm
11.
Oh yeah.
We're hoping that we have good weather this year, but people fish in the rain.
Fishing is fishing. Yeah.
Fishing is
The fish
fishing.
don't mind if it's
They
raining.
do not.
I've
Yeah. And
noticed.
so,
Yeah.
yeah, so it's a really great day. And in the last couple of years, at least one of our winners has been a child. So, all ages
Ah,
are invited to
yeah.
participate, and
Yeah.
they can catch some big fish in those ponds.
Absolutely.
The
The
fish
fish don't
forget.
care.
Yeah, the tournament's a year
Doesn't
apart,
matter
so
how
the
old
fish
you are.
forget. They don't see it coming. So,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
they're very easy to bait.
Wow.
Another thing that we have going on, and it just got set up this morning, is the Octorara Watershed has the winners of their photo contest on display in our lobby, and they'll be there until August. And they're just beautiful photos to come out and see of
Hmm.
uh, the nature all around us. So,
Yeah. Yeah. That is a spectacular area and lots of eagles. Yeah. This is how I
winner
know
is an eagle,
Octorara.
a
Yeah.
picture of an eagle. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
a bald eagle on the reservoir catching a fish.
Yeah.
It's just gorgeous.
Yeah. Very cool.
Can I also put in a plug, which I forgot to
Yeah.
mention earlier? We've talked about children and younger people, um, but for adults, being a caregiver is obviously
Mm,
very driven by emotion, and we are starting a new working with the Brandywine Hospice here in West Grove, a new support group in the library for caregivers.
mm.
Um,
Thanks.
and that's going to be, I think, the second Tuesday of each month, starting on June 11th. Um, so I
Wonderful.
hope that will help
Yeah.
for
That'd be a great
yeah,
resource
yeah,
for
yeah.
folks. Yeah. Absolutely.
And
So,
David brings up a good thing. Like,
uh,
libraries are good places to gather. I know we have a support group, a grief support group that meets in our library. We don't run it, but they use our space.
right.
So if you are looking for like-minded people, talk to your local library. Maybe you can get something going using their space, which is a safe space that makes is familiar to people and they're comfortable
Yeah,
in.
yeah. No, I mean, libraries are just they're a place where everyone is welcome. I mean, that's really the thing. There's no reason to not go to the library ever.
Well said.
So, David, I want to ask you if you would read us a story.
So I'm going to read an extract from a wonderful book, which is called Justice Restored 3.0. A collection of social justice writings and art from the youth of Chester County.
Ooh.
It's a lovely book which we have in our library system. It was published, I think, about 5, 6 years ago, and it's a collection of writings and drawings from young people who were inside the Chester County Juvenile Detention Center,
Hmm.
and it's a collection of um, very, very powerful prose, poems, letters, and essays that were published. And as I was looking through these, I was really, I felt I could recite any one of these. They're really, there's a very powerful message and story behind all of these, wonderful works. Um, but I landed on one of them, which is called um, Chapter One. It's by Donnie, who was age 19, a youth in detention at the um, uh, Chester County Detention Center. Do you know what I overcame? I overcame the bullies, the abuse, the loss of family and close friends. You're going to know my name because I'm going to get off probation, go to the Navy, follow my dad's family footstep, get married, have a happy family without worrying about the pain and depression I've gone through. All the struggles I've been through, try not to go into the negatives. I overcame everything in my life, trying to avoid the shame, light the flame inside me. I rewrote the game. Chapter one, my life, how I came this far.
Mm, wow.
And there are many, many more like that.
Yeah. 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 I have to say, I really feel that. I don't know how much language I have that I can put around that. It's very moving, and I'm really sort of picturing that young man, and sort of him standing in a different way.
And I think that's,
Yeah.
the thread that runs throughout this book. It's extremely powerful. I think Carey, you've read it too. Extremely, extremely, very, very evocative and very powerful, and
Yeah.
some wonderful writing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was put together by a great organization called Arts Holding Hands and Hearts in Canada.
Oh, yes.
Um, and with their work with the children who were incarcerated, and prompts that they gave them. So it's a really, yes, I'm I'm familiar with the book. It's a great book, and I encourage everybody to read it. But it might make you cry a little.
Yeah, and
It's very
so you
moving.
you will have a spot of sadness, a spot of um there's a sense there of this young man growing up, sort of becoming the person that he actually does picture, as being that grown up. That, yeah, that's really beautiful. And so it's a spot of that
Yeah,
for us.
exactly.
Yeah, so we can see it, we can feel it, we can talk about it. And that's what the libraries are all about. I want to thank you both for doing this with us, for us. You've named a lot of resources, a lot of books. We're going to post everything with this podcast so people can access it. They can certainly go to your websites for your library and do the things they need to do, like sign up to read to the therapy dog, which just sounds like so much fun, at least for me. So, yeah, awesome. Thanks so much, Carey and David. And I look forward to hearing from you guys about more and what's going on. And I hope that we hear from some of the folks who are listening to this podcast about how the library works for them. So, thanks.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much. Thank you for having us.